Welcome back to our channel, World Coins History. As you knew that old is gold, but these rare Kennedy half-dollar coins that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1. Today we are talking about a coin that looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and yet has fooled millions of people into spending something they should have stopped and checked first. This Kennedy half-dollar with 1776 to 1976 on it isn't just a coin. It's a time capsule from America's 200th birthday, and some versions of it quietly sell for far more than most people ever imagine. Hold the coin up close on screen and let the camera settle on Kennedy's portrait, because that dual date immediately tells you this was never meant to be normal change. It was struck to celebrate the bicentennial of the United States. Flip it over slowly and pause, because instead of the usual eagle, you see Independence Hall, the very place where American history was written, and that single design change already separates this coin from almost every other half-dollar. Now here's where most people mess up, and yes, this mistake costs real money, because not every 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollar is valuable, but a few specific ones absolutely are. Zoom in on the edge of the coin, because if you see a solid silver edge with no copper stripe, you may be holding a 40% silver version, and that one was never meant for everyday circulation. Tilt the coin under light and show the surface, because some of these were struck as proof coins, with mirror-like fields and razor-sharp details that scream collector quality the moment you see them. Check the mint mark carefully, because an S mint mark means San Francisco, and those are the coins collectors watch closely, especially when the surfaces look too clean to be normal. Now here comes the part that keeps collectors awake at night, the errors, because some bicentennial Kennedy halves show doubled lettering, especially in Liberty or In God We Trust, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Others were struck off-center or with weak details, and these mistakes turn an already historic coin into something rare enough that collectors fight over it at auctions. Here's a detail most people never notice, and it's wild once you know it. The designer's initials are quietly hidden on the coin, like a signature left behind for sharp eyes only. And now the question everyone waits for: what is it actually worth? Not fantasy numbers, not hype, real money. A normal circulated copper-nickel version usually sells for about $1 to $3. Uncirculated examples can reach $5 to $15, and 40% silver versions often trade between $8 and $20 depending on condition. Proof silver coins from San Francisco can sell for $15 to $30, and verified error coins have sold for hundreds when collectors compete for the right piece. So ask yourself this honestly: do you own this coin? And if you do, have you ever checked the edge, the mint mark, and the surface, or did it sit ignored in a drawer? This coin proves that collecting isn't about luck, it's about knowing what to look for and slowing down before you spend history. Top 2. We are talking about a coin that people still spend without a second thought, even though certain versions of it are quietly pulled from circulation and flipped for real money by collectors who know exactly what to look for. This is the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that looks simple, clean, and ordinary, but hides a few secrets that can instantly change its value if you catch them in time. Bring the camera in close and let the coin fill the screen, because on the front you see John F. Kennedy, calm and sharp, with 1972 stamped underneath, a year that most people never associate with rarity or surprises. Flip it over slowly and hold on the eagle, wings spread wide, because this is where one of the biggest clues lies, and most people miss it completely. Now here's the truth that surprises collectors: the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar is not rare by default. Millions were made, so if you're hoping every one is valuable, that idea goes nowhere fast. But this is where things turn interesting, because some 1972 coins were struck with mistakes, and one of those mistakes is famous among Kennedy collectors. Zoom in tight on the back of the coin, right below the eagle, and look for the letters F and G, the designer's initials, because on some 1972 D coins, those letters are weak or completely missing. This is known as the no FG variety, and once you know about it, you start spotting it everywhere, usually sitting unnoticed in old jars and inherited collections. Tilt the coin under light and rotate it slowly, because worn dies cause those initials to fade, and collectors pay attention when the rest of the coin still looks sharp. Now don't blink, because there's more. some 1972 Kennedy half-dollars show double details on the front, especially around the lettering and Kennedy's profile, and these doubling errors can be subtle but powerful in value. Show a side-by-side close-up here. Normal coin versus double details, because once you see the thickness in the letters, your brain instantly clicks. Here's the cliffhanger most people don't expect: condition matters more than the year, because a common 1972 coin in average shape is boring, but a clean, uncirculated one with the right error becomes a collector target. Historically, this coin comes from a time when silver was already gone from circulating half-dollars, so nobody saved them, which is exactly why sharp examples are harder to find today. Now let's talk real numbers, not hype, not guesses, just market reality. A normal circulated 1972 Kennedy half-dollar usually sells for 50 cents to $1, uncirculated examples can reach $5 to $10, and no FG error coins commonly sell from $20 to $100 depending on condition. Strong double die examples can push higher when verified, especially when collectors compete, and auction prices rise fast when demand kicks in. So let me ask you this: do you own a 1972 Kennedy half-dollar? And if you do, have you ever checked the back for missing letters, or did it just sit there unnoticed? This coin proves that value isn't always loud. Sometimes it's hiding in tiny details that reward people who slow down and actually look. Top 3. We are talking about a Kennedy half-dollar that most people treat like dead change, but collectors know it hides one of the strangest stories of the entire series. The 1983 Kennedy half-dollar looks boring at first glance, but here's the shocker: this coin comes from a year when almost none were saved in perfect condition, and that single fact changes everything. Put the coin right up to the camera and let it sit there, because on the front you see Kennedy's familiar profile, clean and calm, with 1983 underneath, a year that doesn't sound exciting until you know what happened behind the scenes. Flip it over slowly and hold on the eagle, because this design never changed, but the way this coin was made in 1983 absolutely did. Here's the first thing you need to understand: in 1983 the US Mint did not sell regular mint sets to collectors, which means almost every single 1983 Kennedy half-dollar went straight into circulation. That one decision created a problem that collectors still chase today, because high-quality examples are surprisingly hard to find, even though millions were made. Zoom in on the surface and tilt it under the light, because many 1983 halves show weak strikes, dull luster, bag marks, and flat details from being tossed around right after striking. Now here's where things get fun, because errors on this coin can turn an ignored half-dollar into something special. Look closely at the edge, because some 1983 Kennedy halves were struck with missing clad layers, leaving one side showing a strange, dull copper look that immediately jumps out. Rotate the coin slowly, because off-center strikes and broad strikes also show up on this date, and when the design drifts or spreads, collectors pay attention fast. Check the lettering carefully, especially around Liberty and In God We Trust, because light double details and grease-filled dies can soften or distort the letters in ways that shouldn't exist. Here's the cliffhanger most people miss: condition beats everything with this coin, because a normal worn 1983 half-dollar is nothing special, but a sharp, untouched example becomes a challenge coin that collectors actively hunt. Historically, this coin comes from a time when half-dollars were already disappearing from daily use, which means fewer people cared, fewer people saved them, and fewer survived clean. Now let's talk real value: no hype, no fantasy, just what the market actually says. A circulated 1983 Kennedy half-dollar is usually worth face value to $1, uncirculated examples often sell for $5 to $20, and high-grade certified coins can climb much higher because of their scarcity. Error coins like missing clad layers, strong off-center strikes, or dramatic mint mistakes can sell from $50 into the hundreds depending on how bold the error is. So here's the real question: do you own a 1983 Kennedy half-dollar? And have you ever actually looked at it under good light, or did you assume it was nothing? This coin proves that rarity isn't always about low mintage. Sometimes it's about survival, neglect, and tiny mistakes hiding in plain sight. Top 4. We are looking at a Kennedy half-dollar that most people overlook completely, even though it comes from one of the quietest and strangest years in modern U.S. coin history. the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar rarely shows up in daily change, and here's the twist, most of them were never meant for the public in the first place. Bring the coin close to the camera and let it fill the frame. Because Kennedy's portrait looks familiar, but the story behind the 1973 date is anything but ordinary. Flip the coin over slowly and center the eagle, because this design hides a clue that explains why collectors pay attention to this year. Here's the shocker. In 1973 the US Mint stopped releasing Kennedy half-dollars for general circulation, which means you couldn't just get one in your pocket back then. That decision alone makes the 1973 half-dollar different, because nearly all of them were sold only in special mint sets to collectors. Zoom in on the surface and tilt it under light, because these coins often show stronger strikes and cleaner details compared to surrounding years. Now here's where collectors lean forward, because even with limited release, errors still happened, and those errors are where value lives. Check the lettering closely, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, because some 1973 halves show light doubling from die issues that can increase collector interest. Look at the edge next, because missing or uneven clad layers can appear, leaving odd textures or color shifts that shouldn't be there. Rotate the coin slowly, because off-center strikes and broad strikes exist for this year, and when a coin escapes quality control like that, collectors notice immediately. Here's the cliffhanger most people don't expect: the real rarity isn't the year itself, it's condition, because many mint set coins still picked up marks over time. Historically, this coin comes from an era when half-dollars were fading from everyday use, making them easy to forget but exciting to rediscover today. Now let's talk real market value. No hype, no fantasy numbers, just what collectors actually pay. A normal 1973 Kennedy half-dollar in mint set condition usually sells for $3 to $8, higher grade examples can reach $15 to $30, and verified error coins can sell for $50 or more depending on severity. So here's the question for you. Do you own a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, and if you do, did you ever stop to ask why it looks cleaner than most others? This coin proves that sometimes rarity comes from how a coin was released, not how many were made. Top 5. We are talking about a Kennedy half-dollar that almost nobody checks, even though it comes from a year when small details quietly separate common change from collector interest. The 1988 Kennedy half-dollar looks simple, familiar, and harmless, but stick with me, because a few versions of this coin surprise people every single time. Put the coin close to the camera and let it settle, because Kennedy's portrait hasn't changed much by 1988, yet the story around this year absolutely has. Flip it over slowly and frame the eagle, because this is where most people stop looking, and that's exactly why they miss what matters. Here's the first truth you need to know: the 1988 Kennedy half-dollar was made in large numbers, so by default it's not rare, and anyone saying otherwise is selling dreams. But value doesn't always come from low mintage, it comes from condition, errors, and what escaped quality control. Tilt the coin under light and show the surface, because many 1988 halves were heavily bag-marked, and clean examples are harder to find than people expect. Now zoom in on the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, because some 1988 coins show double details that look like shadows hugging the letters. These double die errors are subtle, but once spotted, collectors lock in fast. Next, rotate the coin and look at the edge, because missing clad layer errors exist. And when one side shows strange copper tones or unusual texture, that's a red flag worth checking. Hold the coin steady and turn it slowly, because off-center strikes and broad strikes also appear from this year, and even small shifts in alignment catch collector attention. Here's the part most people never consider: half-dollars were already fading from daily use in the late 1980s, so fewer people cared, fewer people saved them, and fewer survived in strong condition. That means a sharp 1988 Kennedy half-dollar with full luster quietly becomes more interesting than its mintage numbers suggest. Now let's talk real market value. No hype, no fantasy prices, just what collectors actually pay. A circulated 1988 Kennedy half-dollar usually sells for face value to $1, clean uncirculated examples often sell for $2 to $5, and high-grade certified coins can climb higher depending on demand. Verified error coins like double dies, missing clad layers, or strong off-center strikes can sell from $20 into the hundreds depending on how dramatic the error is. So let me ask, Do you own a 1988 Kennedy half dollar, and if you do, have you ever actually looked at it closely, or did you assume it was nothing special? This coin proves that value isn't always loud, sometimes it whispers through tiny details that reward patience and sharp eyes. Top 6. We are talking about a Kennedy half dollar that most people think is way too modern to matter, and that belief alone has caused thousands of these coins to be ignored and spent without a second look. The year 2000 Kennedy half dollar sounds boring, right? But stay with me, because this coin marks a turning point where circulation, collecting, and mistakes collided in a way most people never noticed. Bring the coin close to the camera and let it fill the frame, because Kennedy's portrait in 2000 looks sharp and clean, almost too perfect, and that detail is your first clue. Flip it over slowly and center the eagle, because by the year 2000, half dollars were barely used in daily life, which already changes how collectors think about this coin. Here's what shocks people: most 2000 Kennedy half dollars were not released for everyday circulation, they were struck mainly for mint sets, which instantly limits how many people ever handled one. That single decision quietly turned the 2000 half dollar into a sleeper coin that hides in collections rather than pockets. Tilt the coin under strong light and show the surface, because many 2000 halves have bright luster and sharp edges that stand out compared to worn older coins. Now zoom in on the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, because some 2000 coins show light doubling caused by dye issues, and those tiny shadows can mean real collector interest. Check the edge carefully next, because missing clad layer errors exist. For this year, and when you see odd coloring or uneven thickness, that's not normal. Rotate the coin slowly and look at the spacing, because off-center strikes and broad strikes slipped through in small numbers, and when they did, collectors noticed fast. Here's the cliffhanger most people miss: modern coins can still be rare, not because they're old, but because nobody bothered to save them correctly. Historically, the year 2000 sits at the edge between circulation coins and collector-only issues, making this half dollar a strange hybrid that doesn't fit neatly into either category. Now let's talk real market value, not hype, not wild claims, just what the market actually says. A normal 2000 Kennedy half dollar in average condition usually sells for $1 to $3, mint set examples often sell for $3 to $8, and high-grade certified coins can sell for much more when collectors compete. Verified error coins like double dyes, missing clad layers, or strong off-center strikes can sell from $30 into the hundreds depending on how dramatic and clear the error is. So let me ask you, do you own a 2000 Kennedy half dollar? And if you do, did you ever stop to ask why it feels different from older ones? This coin proves that modern doesn't mean worthless, it just means the story is hiding closer to the surface. Top 7. We are talking about a Kennedy half dollar that most people assume is just modern pocket change, but this one quietly marks the return of silver, and that single detail changes how collectors see it. The 1992 Kennedy half dollar doesn't look special at first glance, but stay with me, because depending on how it was made, this coin can be ordinary or something collectors actively hunt. Bring the coin close to the camera and let the light roll across Kennedy's portrait, because the front alone won't tell you the full story yet. Flip it over slowly and hold on the eagle, because this is where the year matters more than the design. Here's the surprise most people never hear: in 1992 the US Mint brought silver back to the Kennedy half dollar, but only for special collector versions. That means two very different 1992 half dollars exist, one made of copper nickel for circulation, and another made of 90% silver for proof sets. Zoom in on the edge of the coin, because this is the fastest way to tell the difference. A solid silver edge with no copper stripe means you're looking at the silver proof. Tilt the coin under strong light and show the surface, because proof coins have deep mirror-like fields and sharp frosted details that jump out instantly. Now here's where things get interesting, because even proof coins aren't perfect every time. Look closely at the lettering and Kennedy's profile, because some 1992 proofs show light doubling or frost breaks that collectors pay attention to. Check the rim and edge next, because struck-through debris and minor planchet flaws appear on this date, creating tiny but valuable mistakes. Here's the cliffhanger most people miss: the rarest 1992 Kennedy half dollars aren't worn coins, they're the ones that look almost too perfect or slightly wrong in just one spot. Historically, this coin sits at a turning point when the mint tested collector demand for silver again, making 1992 a milestone year for the series. Now, let's talk real market value, not wild claims, just what collectors actually pay. A normal circulated 1992 Kennedy half-dollar is usually worth face value to $1, copper-nickel proofs sell for $2 to $5, and 90% silver-proof versions often sell for $15 to $30 depending on condition. Verified proof errors or unusual mint mistakes can sell higher when certified, especially when collectors compete. So here's the question for you: do you own a 1992 Kennedy half-dollar, and have you ever checked the edge to see what it's really made of? This coin proves that sometimes value comes back quietly, hiding behind a familiar face. Top 8. We are talking about a Kennedy half-dollar that looks so modern most people don't even bother checking it, and that mistake has quietly cost collectors real money. The 1998 Kennedy half-dollar sits in a strange place, not old enough to feel historic, not new enough to feel special, yet it hides one version that completely changes the story. Bring the coin close to the camera and let it sit there for a second. Because Kennedy's portrait in 1998 looks sharp and familiar, almost too normal to be interesting. Flip it over slowly and center the eagle, because by the late 1990s, half-dollars were already disappearing from everyday use, and that matters more than people realize. Here's the first surprise: most 1998 Kennedy half-dollars never circulated the way older ones did. Many were pulled aside, ignored, or locked into sets that people forgot about. Now here's where things split into two paths. Because not all 1998 Kennedy half-dollars are the same, even though they look identical at first glance. Tilt the coin under strong light and check the surface, because some 1998 halves were struck as proof coins with deep mirror-like fields and frosted details that jump out instantly. Zoom in on the edge next, because a solid silver edge with no copper stripe means you're looking at a 90% silver proof, not regular change. This is where collectors perk up, because silver proofs from this year were never meant for circulation, and once separated from their original packaging, they get overlooked fast. Now let's talk errors, because even modern coins make mistakes, and 1998 is no exception. Look closely at Liberty and In God We Trust, because some coins show light doubling that looks like a shadow hugging the letters. Rotate the coin slowly and watch the rim, because struck through debris and minor planchet flaws can distort the surface in ways that shouldn't exist. Check alignment carefully, because off-center strikes and broad strikes slipped through in small numbers. And even a slight shift can push collector interest way up. Here's the cliffhanger most people miss: the rarest 1998 Kennedy half-dollars aren't worn coins, they're the ones that look almost perfect or slightly wrong in one tiny place. Historically, this coin comes from a period when the mint focused more on collectors than circulation, which quietly changed how many quality examples survived. Now let's talk real market value. No hype, no wild claims, just what the market actually pays. A normal circulated 1998 Kennedy half-dollar usually sells for face value to $1, copper-nickel proof versions often sell for $2 to $5, and 90% silver-proof coins commonly sell for $15 to $30 depending on condition. Verified error coins with clear doubling, off-center strikes, or striking flaws can sell for $30 to several hundred when collectors compete. So let me ask you this: do you own a 1998 Kennedy half-dollar? And if you do, have you ever checked the edge or looked at it under strong light? This coin proves that value doesn't always come from age, sometimes it comes from timing, metal, and tiny mistakes hiding in plain sight. Top 9, and last unique Kennedy half-dollar coin. We are talking about a Kennedy half-dollar that changed everything for the series, and most people have no idea they're holding a turning point in U.S. coin history. The 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is the first of its kind, the moment silver quietly disappeared from circulation, and that single fact already makes this coin more important than it looks. Bring the coin close to the camera and let it fill the screen, because Kennedy's portrait looks familiar, confident, and calm, but the date underneath tells a much bigger story. Flip it over slowly and center the eagle, because while the design stayed the same, what the coin is made of did not, and collectors care deeply about that shift. Here's the shocker: 1971 was the first year Kennedy half-dollars were struck in copper-nickel instead of silver, and millions of people never noticed the change. That decision marked the end of an era, and it's exactly why this coin sits at a historic crossroads that collectors love to study. tilt the coin under light and show the surface, because early clad coins like this often show weaker strikes and rougher details compared to later years. Now zoom in on the lettering and Kennedy's profile, because some 1971 half dollars show double details caused by die errors, and those doubled edges can push value far beyond face value. Rotate the coin slowly and check alignment, because off-center strikes and broad strikes exist for this year, and even a small shift can turn an ignored coin into a collector piece. Look closely at the edge next, because missing clad layer errors happen when the outer layer fails, leaving strange coloring and texture that instantly stands out. Here's the cliffhanger most people miss: the rare part of this coin isn't the date alone, it's finding one with sharp detail, clean surfaces, or a clear mint error. Historically, this coin comes from a time when half dollars were still used but already losing popularity. Which means many were abused, spent hard, and never saved properly. Now let's talk real market value, no hype, no fantasy numbers, just what collectors actually pay. A normal circulated 1971 Kennedy half dollar usually sells for face value to $1, clean uncirculated examples often sell for $3 to $10. And verified error coins can sell from $20 into the hundreds depending on strength and condition. So let me ask you this: do you own a 1971 Kennedy half dollar, and did you ever realize you were holding the first non-silver chapter of the series? This coin proves that importance isn't always loud, sometimes it's hidden in what quietly changed forever. If this helped you see this coin differently, hit like so others don't overlook it. Drop a comment and tell me which Kennedy half dollar you own or want next. Subscribe for more coin stories that actually matter. And keep watching, because the next coin might already be sitting in your change jar.